He was the 4'2" height star that literally made royals roar with laughter. And way back in 1959, at the Royal Command performance, on the special instruction of a senior royal, this particular, well, now almost forgotten megastar of BBC Radio was asked to entertain a senior royal. As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. How are you? Nice to see you today. And as ever, nice to have your company. I know, I'll get there. I know, well, it's cold holding the stick. It is, honestly. Don't tell me. Don't tell me off debating about having a tot of sherry now. I know. Somebody said that warms you up. Do you like sherry? It's not a drink that's in fashion now, though, is it? Have you noticed? When I worked in bars years ago, I mentioned this to someone the other day, people used to have sherry over ice. Do you remember that? Cream sherry. And who remembers the ad for Harvey's Bristol Cream? That was a big thing every Christmas, wasn't it? Yes, well, I know, these times move on, you know. It's a bit like the sort of spheres of comedy that we often like to share with you here on the show. It certainly does move on, you know, there's no two ways about it. Comedy is sort of those things where you look back with nostalgia, and sometimes you think, did I find this funny? Is it funny now? And then you have to ask yourself, well, yeah, it's not too bad, actually. One person, though, that truly did make senior royals laugh was none other than this man. That's right, the 4'2" high, none other, Jimmy Clitheroe. Jimmy Clitheroe was a megastar for many years, not just literally on BBC Radio with the Clitheroe Kid, but also in pantomime, film, stage shows, all of that sort of stuff. The thing is, you see, Jimmy had a certain genetic disorder, which basically meant that, you know, he only grew to that particular height. And it worked very well, you know, very well indeed in theatre, where the audience were a few rows back and they couldn't quite see the fact that in reality he was well into his 30s or something at that point. Now, the Clitheroe Kid was a mega radio show. It's hard to imagine, you know, just how popular this was. Every Sunday afternoon it aired on the BBC Home Service, and over 21 million viewers, listeners, whatever you call them, tuned in regularly every week. One of those was none other than the late and wonderful Queen Mother, who literally loved Jimmy Clitheroe. And the reason being, according to a very well-placed source, was this. You see, she felt that this gave her a sort of benchmark of reality of what happened outside this sort of London parameter, as it were. It was set in a Lancashire town, and she understood sort of the nuances of what the comedy was about and what those particular people did. Very clever, I thought the Queen Mother was. So in 1959, she personally requested the fact that Jimmy Clitheroe be on the bill at that year's Royal Command performance, which was held up at the Manchester Palace Theatre. But what was fascinating was this, you see, because as I say, you know, in those days, they were, well, very keen to make sure that the royals liked the show. So they would say, you know, does Her Majesty like this? Or would the Duke like this? You know, that type of thing. And of course, they were a little bit shocked when the Clitheroe Kid was rated as yes, please. The star of the show was none other than the American superstar, King of Keys, Liberace. And of course, he had been down to appear in a royal variety show a couple of years back, but all thanks to the debacle of the Suez Crisis, well, that was cancelled at the 11th hour. He got his dream in front, firstly, of course, of the Queen Mother. He'd been battling a lot of problems, though, over here in the United Kingdom. Firstly, with the Daily Mirror's Cassandra column, who basically said some terrible things about him, which he managed to win in court. So this was a reaffirmation, if you like, of his star power coming back. But apparently backstage, he literally thought that Jimmy Clitheroe was in fact an 11-year-old boy and kept speaking to him like that. It came as something of a shock when Jimmy got out of his schoolboy uniform and then literally was, you know, wandering around backstage. Apparently Liberace said, "Who's that?" And they said, "Well, Jimmy Clitheroe." And he said, no, he's a little schoolboy. It's amazing to think just how clever the guy was. Apparently the Queen Mother absolutely, as I say, adored his performance on that night at the Manchester Palace, which secured his show to go on for many years to come. In fact, right through until 1972. And sadly, following the demise of his mother, he died a couple of days later, allegedly from a sleeping pill overdose. A very sad story to a wonderful career that had made so many people so happy with so much fun, including one of our much loved senior royals. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.